Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. I apologize for the fan noise in the background. It's summer and there's no air conditioning out here in the workshop. Sorry about that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the Smith & Wesson Model 2 38 single-action revolver. This was introduced in 1876 as the first model, and it also introduced the 38 Smith & Wesson cartridge. The original Model 1, as it came to be known, had a longer ejector rod shroud under the barrel that is no longer there. So it came colloquially to be known as the Baby Russian, because it resembled the number 3 Russian with the long ejector rod housing. In 1877, they changed to the second model of the Model 2, and it had the shorter ejector rod housing, and barrels were offered between 3 1/4 and 6 inches, although typically most of them were 3 1/4 inch barrels because this was kind of a pocket pistol. They made about 223,000 of them between 1877 and 1891. After that, the vast bulk of the guns had a trigger guard rather than the spur trigger. And the model persisted into the 20th century, I believe. Now, it's not a large gun, obviously, so let's go to the tabletop and have a closer look at it. Okay, first things first, we'll unload and show clear. This has the fairly typical T-release at the top. You just push up on it and pop it open, and the ejector ejects, and you're ready to load cartridges. In this case, 38 Smith & Wesson, which was introduced with this gun. Just pop 5 in, close it, and you're ready to go. Bit of a story behind how this gun came to be. A friend of mine, Magnum Wheelman, on the Single Action Forum, had a similar gun in his profile picture that I very much admired. It had the 2-inch barrel and pearl grips. And of course, when I was offered one of these cheap, I snagged it up and made it into this gun, which emulates his with my own little touches. Mother of pearl grips were not in the picture, so I made some antler ones because antler is cool. The sights, while this has a custom bronze front sight, I find gives good visibility. The sights are the typical nearly microscopic Smith & Wesson double action sights. The weird part is that I have no trouble at all consistently hitting pop cans at 30 yards with this gun, despite the very short sights. And I speculate this is because the sight radius is so short that both of them are in focus at the same time, which allows you to get really good precision, even though the front rear sight is tiny. The gun does have a safety cock notch, and that is part of why I got the gun so cheap, because the fellow who had it thought maybe it was broken, because the cylinder free rotates when the hammer is in the safety notch. And he did not know if this was normal, and at the time I didn't either. As it turns out, it is quite normal. It's in that position. Doesn't matter if it rotates when it's fully loaded before you fire it, because when you cock the hammer, it indexes, and when you fire, the cylinder stays locked. And there's no reason to cock the hammer again unless you want to fire again. So it makes sure there's always a loaded cartridge in the appropriate position for the next shot. But in the safety notch, which it's very easy to lower the hammer into by accident, like I just did, in that case, yeah, it will rotate. But that's never an issue when you're firing it, because it always goes down. As you can see, the top of the hammer is relieved to allow for the T-bar that locks the gun. And it's quite a handy little package. Now, the spur trigger, which was retained throughout the second model, when the third model came out in 1891, most of them were made with a trigger guard, although a short run of guns with the spur trigger were made for the Mexican government. And the trigger is not entirely concealed when the gun isn't cocked, and as you can see, there's some pretty nice little fine checkering on there. And it pops out into position to be used when you fully cock the hammer. And they're kind of interesting because the hinge for the trigger is very, very low. So if you pull at the top, the trigger pull seems very heavy. If you pull at the bottom, the trigger pull seems really quite decent. So it's a bit of a trick to it, as you have to sort of reach down across the trigger to pull it at the bottom. And of course, being an auto ejector, it's pretty quick to reload, and you can in fact use J-frame speed loaders with it, which is handy if you decide it's a good idea to carry a 140-year-old 5-shot 38 for self-defense, which in fairness Magnum Wheel Man does, and always shocks the always shocks people when he qualifies with it as well as he does. But he's an exception rather than the rule. It's a very well-made gun, and when I got it, it had very tatty nickel finish, which I carefully removed using fine abrasives and a really inordinate amount of time. And then I refinished it, completely stripped it, and refinished it in this lovely dark rust blue. And it's quite a handsome little gun. It's a lot of fun to shoot. As I said, surprisingly accurate. And just a great little conversation piece. This gun, by the way, I believe was made in 1884. And, well, it has a new life now. So, almost 140 years later. Would I carry it? Not as a primary. In certain situations where discretion was an overriding concern and conditions allowed me to carry this, I'd probably prefer it to something like a 22 or 25 auto, or even one of the tiny North American Arms revolvers. And just a great little gun, very fun, came out just the way I wanted, and I really, really enjoy it. There's a fair number of people out there who would take me to task for modifying an antique revolver like this. And they can bite me, because they're not scarce. It was not in collectible condition, and while these are becoming increasingly collectible, they only really want pristine examples. So, screw it. It's my gun. I'll do with it what I want. And mostly what I want is just to enjoy it for what it is, which is an odd little conversation piece of history, and, you know, range or plinking gun. And it's really a testament to Smith & Wesson that 140 years after it was made, there's absolutely nothing mechanically wrong with this gun. The chambers are in good shape, the bore's in good shape. The only thing that really suffered over the years were the rubber handles and crappy nickel finish. Everything else is just dandy, and I really find it quite delightful and enjoy it a great deal. Anyway, if you like the video, hit the like button below. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. Subscribe if you want to see more videos as they come out. Hit notifications, yada yada, blah blah blah. And if you're particularly motivated to help me bring these videos and interesting guns for you to ponder, you can click the link below in the description and support me on Patreon. So I hope this finds you well, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.